Hello, and welcome to the Parenting Neurodivergent Teens and Young Adults podcast. I'm Dr. Ed Callahan, a Ph.D. level therapist, coach, and educator. If you're a parent of a neurodivergent teen and you're struggling, or if you just want to be the best parent you can possibly be for your teen, then this podcast is for you. My deepest intention is to take my 30 plus years of experience and provide the most efficient ways to share vital information to help life go better for everyone involved, for your neurodivergent teen, their siblings, and especially for you as a parent. I am continually creating a range of support materials and coaching packages from no-cost social media content to intensive premium services so you can find access to the level of support that is right for you and your family circumstances. As a great place to start, please consider joining my low-cost parent support community, where I provide informative courses, practical content, Q&A sessions, and most importantly, where other like-minded parents will be available to give and receive support. And if you believe you need more intensive and individualized support, contact me to determine what level of support would be appropriate for your needs. See the links in the show notes or visit my website at neurodiversity-u.com. I hope you find value and enjoy this episode. Please note, with all my programs and content, this is for parent training and educational purposes only and does not represent therapy nor qualify as establishing a therapist-client relationship. Please like and subscribe and leave any questions and comments or suggestions for future content in the comment section below. All right, with all that out of the way, let's get started. Okay, everybody, welcome to actually my third episode of my podcast, Parenting Neurodiverse Teens and Young Adults. And I have with me today an awesome guest, Shari Murray, who I've known for many years. Her and I were working for a company called Homeward Bound for, well, really since 2013. Mm-hmm. And that's where we had a lot of parenting adventures, going into families' homes and working with them directly, and then coaching them for up to 4 months and beyond the home visit. And so just really helping support parents primarily transitioning home from having a teen transition home from a treatment program. So just helping them reintegrate back into the home. But Shari and I have also another common interest, which is working with neurodivergent teens and young adults. So Shari, welcome. Why don't you introduce a little bit about your background and tell us a little bit more about yourself and for the audience's benefit.
Certainly. So as Ed said, my name is Shari Murray. Ed and I have known each other for 12 years now, actually probably closer to 13. Not that matters. But I am both a social worker and a marriage and family therapist by training. Worked in and out of mental health, but for the last 13 years, I have been exclusively with Homeward Bound, as Ed said, doing that transition work with families. And Ed and I kind of share the opportunity to work with kids on the spectrum. I'm also the mother to a 27-year-old, oh my gosh, young adult with autism. He's level 2 autism, a little different than most. But so I have been there, done that. So a lot of my coaching comes probably more so from my personal experience than necessarily the professional training, but the combination of the two has been really helpful. So that's me.
Yeah. And I think, Shari, that's an amazing part of your story is, really having that fundamental experience of being a parent and having to go through that. And, probably at levels that, certainly a lot of parents are dealing with for sure out there. But so I think, I don't know, want to acknowledge that is an amazing part of your story. And also really, I think, gives you insights into parenting that obviously no one that hasn't done it would necessarily have. Right? So,
and I think where it's been like the most helpful in terms of kind of transitioning or translating my personal experience into that professional space is I know what it's like to have a bunch of professionals throw a bunch of stuff at you and then never asking, well, is that going to work for you? Does that work in your house? Does that work with your kid? It's just, here's all the stuff and you're supposed to do it. And so I have found that it's been really helpful for me when I'm coaching a family and I'm suggesting anything. My next question is always, hey, does that even feel like you could do that? Does that feel doable, workable? Is that how your kid works? Because just having a professional just a bunch of stuff at you all the time doesn't really do much.
Yeah,
So
sure.
I always
Except
like to make
overwhelm and
sure.
frustrate you more, right?
Yeah, right. It just
like,
makes it worse because you're like, they say I'm supposed to do all these things and I'm doing all those things and it's not working. So
right.
to know to ask that piece. So
Yeah, and again, we've talked about this a lot, but that idea of traditional parenting advice is just almost 100% of the time the absolute opposite or wrong
yeah,
in
it's not
those
helpful.
situations.
Yes. If I could do that, I would do that. Yeah, it would be a given. So
For sure. Yeah, that and the helpful advice of friends and family and other spectators or, peanut gallery people at the grocery store or something,
yes,
right?
you have some thoughts. Yeah, always super helpful.
Everybody seems to have an opinion for sure, but,
Yes, they
have no
certainly
idea
do.
what's going on behind the scenes and, and how much you're having to do to make things work. So yeah, I really appreciate that. I appreciate your efforts in that area and your understanding and everything that you shared with me over the years has been helpful. Um, so yeah, I don't know. We were talking also kind of beforehand about what we'd like to talk about today, and you have a pretty good example that you like to use that comes from your own personal experience, and it kind of highlights this idea of like control versus predictability and trying to understand kind of the nuances of that when you're working with a neurodivergent child or teen or young adult. And this goes all the way up. I
Yeah,
mean, you can say neurodivergent child, that means young child to adolescent to preteen to adolescent to young adult or
27 year
adult.
olds.
Yeah,
Yep, it
exactly.
all
And
still.
beyond, right? Yeah,
Yep,
for sure.
that all
So,
still works. Yeah,
um, yeah, so I don't know. Why don't we jump on into that? I mean, I don't know if you want to just tell the story or how you want to work up
sure.
to it, or
So my son, so if he's in the car with me and we're driving down the road and I realize, oh, gas is low, I need to stop and get gas. If I just pull into the gas station with no notice, sorry, there's my gas. With nothing else, just I pull in and go get gas, it will immediately devolve, is probably the best word, into at least 15 minutes of kind of panic on his part. Definitely anxiety would be the way I would describe it, but it's just, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? Do you need gas? And he just gets so worked up. Right. And in my head, I'm like, dude, I'm just getting gas. Like, it's not that big a deal.
in fact, we've probably done this like 100 times, right?
Yeah,
By
right.
now.
We've done it a million times and it's the same thing every time. And, it used to bug me because he would be like, why are we doing this? And I'm like, because I need gas. And it just felt like he was trying to kind of control everything, where we went, what we did, how we did it, when we did it, kind of all those things. And kind of thinking about it. And what I realized is just any sort of variation in what we were doing, anything that he didn't predict. So anything that was uncertain. And yes, going to the gas station when we're supposed to be driving home is uncertain and unpredictable for him. Once I realized, hey, that's what's going on with him. He's not trying to be a jerk. He's not just like, I just want to get home. That's right. He's just anxious. He's just freaking out over going to gas station. And what I realized with him, at least, was like 5 seconds before I'm going to pull in, I can just say, hey, buddy, I've got to get gas. I'm going to go to the gas station now. And he will have to verify. He has to look at my gas gauge and make sure that, yes, in
He's not
fact,
trying to pull something on him or
yes,
whatever.
yeah, that I'm just goofing with him. He likes to verify. He trusts what verifies every time. He looks at it. He sees that it's low. And he has some phrases. He's kind of still into Thomas the Tank Engine, so it's a lot about going up hills. But then he's fine. And then we pull into the gas station, and his first question is, can I help? Can he do it? And of course. But just that little kind of piece of predictability, game changer. Like it really kind of fixed everything in that situation and helped him. I mean, he still has to verify. He still has to go through a process, but it's not panic anymore. It's just, oh, okay, I can do this. I know what that is, and this is how I do it, right? I know to go help and get gas. And I think that's kind of his way of working through that uncertainty.
Yeah, and isn't that amazing how just a little, it kind of seems like a seemingly little adjustment from our neurotypical points of view or whatever. But man, the outcome of that is very different, right? From total panic, flipping out, asking a lot of questions, really, really, not going to be able to seemingly tolerate the stop or something like that, to almost switching to wanting to cooperate even at that point, right? To help out or to be a part of it.
It's like, okay, totally cool. And I know not every kid, does well with just, a 10-second heads up, and for the most part, he doesn't either. That's one scenario where just a little bit of heads up works, but just recognizing that, the world is kind of a crazy, unpredictable place for kids with, autism similar, anxiety kind of type issues, that anything that varies from what they expect is so big. And it doesn't take that much on our part to make it easier for them.
Yeah. So let's talk about that for a minute, because again, I think you were bringing it up, and again, you and I have talked about this kind of stuff a lot before, but the idea of how you interpret that as a parent, right? Like, how important is it, that first step of recognizing, oh, wait a minute, this isn't them trying to control or bully or get their way or just be a jerk or, whatever. I mean, this is a full-on emotional overwhelm, right?
Yeah.
And that is, so again, your perception as a parent to say, okay, what's really happening here? And it's hard because we talk about that getting pulled into your downstairs brain, that fight, flight, or freeze. Your son is kicked into that mode once he starts to panic, right? So his higher cognitive functioning goes down, and then it pulls you into that too, and you start to panic, like, oh, I got to get gas. Is this going to happen? Is it going to be a wreck? What are people going to think when I pull into the gas station? Or is he going to
yelling in the backseat?
Is he going to run out of the car? I mean, what's going to happen here? So it's easy to get yourself caught up into that fight, flight, or freeze, or downstairs brain, or however you want to refer, you get activated emotionally, so to speak. And that's a whole nother topic we could go into really in depth, right?
But I think it's parents get stuck in their own stories, their own beliefs about what's going on, right? And if you're convinced my kid is just kind of being a jerk, or just trying to control everything, or just is so bossy, right? You're automatically going to have kind of this negative kind of reaction back towards them. And particularly if they're just being a jerk or they're just poking at me, right? Then you kind of want to get back at them, or you want to assert even more control because I'm the parent and I'm in control. And then they just push back more because the anxiety is getting bigger for them. And if you
it's like they're being disrespectful, they can't disrespect me. Like, as a parent, I can't allow this. I mean, all the thoughts start going through the head, right? Like,
and then you just get that drive to correct, and then you end up probably saying a million more things. And if you can remember that your poor kid with autism or anything similar, right? They're still processing probably the first couple things you said. And if you've just added 10 more things on there, they're just trying to play catch up. And what they're still reacting to and what you're now reacting to are, 10 sentences apart and they just haven't caught up yet. And we just have to give them that space. And again, when you can think about, oh, they're just trying to understand what's going on, they're just trying to get some clarity here. Whew. Right.
Yeah,
I
again,
don't
and I
feel
think,
so need to correct, right? Then I think it just makes you softer
yeah,
and
for sure. And I
kinder.
think, again, I think if, again, big takeaway for parents out there is just that idea of if you can stay calm, then you've got a better chance, right? So,
Yeah.
because, yeah, I call that like emotional co-regulation, right? Like if you can stay calm, then you can help your son or daughter calm down. But if you've
Yeah.
lost it, then you're adding fuel to the fire. You're just making everybody panic more, right? So, or
Yeah.
get angry
Right.
more
It
or
makes
upset
it
more.
bigger than it needs to be. And it's usually the parents who are feeling that fire
Right.
because we're coming from that kind of faulty perception that the reason our kid is doing that thing is because something's wrong or they're being bad or
Yeah, or it's willful, like it's a choice, right? They're
yeah,
just being
like they are meaning
oppositional.
to do it. Yeah, that they're
Yeah, they're being
making me getting
oppositional. And,
gas.
right.
Hmm.
Yeah, and they just want to go home because they want to get back to their video games or whatever. They just want to get back to their room, or they want to, and you're
Yeah, they need to
thinking,
get back to where it's safe.
and
Yeah.
you're like, I do so much for you. Can you just let me get some gas? I don't even like going to the gas station. We
Yes, I
got to
don't even
get
want to
gas.
do
This
this
isn't fun for
myself.
me,
Yes.
right? This isn't fun for me either, right? So,
Yeah, it's not the joy of my life is gas getting, but
so can you please? Yeah, I mean, so it's hard not to get caught up into that. I think as a parent. In those situations. But again, like I said, the mindset shift, if we can recognize or be mindful or aware that, okay, he's really panicked or this is really hard for him or her. And, so let's talk about that. Like, why is it harder for a kid on the autism spectrum or, with even ADHD or other, nonverbal learning disorder, all the neurodivergent things? Um, so why is that? Like, why is it harder? Like, what makes that harder?
well, I think their nervous system is just, and I hate to generalize, but generally speaking, it's true. Their nervous systems are pretty reactive and anxious. Like they're
Right.
kind of right. And if you think about that threshold of right, go back to the fight or flight example that you're using, right? If that threshold is here, most of us kind of sit down here most of the time. A neurodivergent kid sits right on that line all the time, and it doesn't take that much to push them. And again, it's not provoking them. It's just their nervous systems are already kind of primed to panic, to
Right.
be anxious about what in our brains is like no big deal, but it's real to them, that panic of I don't know how this is going to turn out, like I don't know what's happening. If your nervous system is so primed to flip into that kind of fight or flight space, right? Things are scary and it's uncertain. And yeah, for them, it's just even worse. I mean, and think about as an adult, if you're neurotypical, if you're going into something that is uncertain, you're anxious too. Now imagine that everything feels that way all the time. Yeah, you're going to want to put some controls in place to
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think a good
minimize
example, like I said,
that.
as a neurotypical adult or whatever, like if you're going into, say, a meeting that you're really anxious about, but then you spill your coffee or, you know what I mean? Or somebody else, a coworker comes up and has a question for you that's urgent, or you get a phone call or something. I mean, that kind of stuff can dysregulate us as well.
Yeah,
But it's like probably more like that for them just going day to day, right? And
yeah,
I think that the sensory sensitivities are so high that they're spending so much effort and energy just to tune stuff out,
hmm,
or ignore that itchy tag on their shirt, or you know what I mean, or deal with wearing shoes, or hearing all
yeah,
this weird noise, or whatever, and the lights are bright or whatever. I mean, so all that kind of stuff I think has taken up a lot of their coping energy, right, or ability to try to stay calm-ish.
yeah. I'm glad you brought up that sensory piece because I think that's often a piece that gets overlooked. I mean, my son was diagnosed at like age 3, so we had a huge head start on that. But I know for parents who are getting diagnosis when kids are 14, 15, right, you're kind of catching up. And I think people overlook that sensory piece. And I think my best way of explaining what I imagine that sensory overload to be is thinking about every sensory input as being on 10. I mean, right now I'm sitting in my office. I can see out of the corner of my eye that there are pigeons on my roof and they're flapping around. But my brain knows, don't pay attention to the pigeons. And my
But now you
dogs
have to
hear,
because you mentioned them. So now you
yes,
can't
now I'm
not think of
wondering what the
pigeons.
pigeons are over there.
Don't think of a pink
Right.
elephant either, right?
Oh,
Don't think
look, right. But I can hear like the fan on my computer is running right now. I can hear
Right.
that. The air conditioning's on where I'm at. My dogs are down here. There's a million pieces of information coming into my head right now, but my brain knows how to ignore pigeons and just put that fan in the background. But for kids with the sensory overload kind of issue, right? Every piece of that sensory information is coming in at full volume. The pigeons are right there, and it's hard to ignore them. And the sound is there, and if you can't quiet all that stuff down, right? How are you ever going to listen to anything your parent has to say? Number one, because that's just one more piece getting in there. So, right, they're spending so much energy kind of sorting through all that noise all the time that, I think just, right, understanding again, they need more time to make things predictable. That, man, as a parent, we have to recognize that and then slow it down. And one of the coaches that Ed and I work with, right, talks about, right, you have 3 sentences to say what you need to say. Like, keep it short, keep it concise, stop over explaining, stop trying to talk them out of why they're right. We're just going to the gas station. That's no big deal. Don't be worried about.
Right. Yeah, someone telling you to not be worried or don't be angry, that doesn't usually go over too well for me, right?
Yeah.
If someone like, but I am upset that you're telling me just not to be.
This is upsetting. Yeah. And if we
But
give
yeah,
them space,
again, that might not be upsetting to us, but it is to them, right?
It's real to them. And right, just give them that time. Say the thing, give them a minute. Let them kind of work through it and prepare for it.
Like we're talking about, like trying to tune out all of that noise again, like that we learn to do as adults or whatever, or neurotypicals, where it's easier for us to do. But so I think that is keeping them on the edge a little bit, and then any kind of like change in what they're anticipating, right? This is where the front loading, you're talking about, hey, we're going to go to the gas station. This is a change in plans. I'm going to give you as much notice as I can, so you can wrap your head around that. Because the processing speed, we could talk about that too. Generally, it just takes more time because, again, think about all the noise, and I think that's part of it. There's a new piece of information. It's got to nudge out all the other sensory stuff that's happening. They got to attend to it and then kind of think through what that means and, I guess verify whether you really do need gas or not. I mean, those are the kind of things that need to happen, right? So I think, like you said, given time and space and recognizing that one new chunk of information can be like the Jenga you pull, or add. I guess this could be adding something that then causes it to fall, right? I guess putting the Jenga on the top or something.
Yes, you have to put that piece back up top. Somewhere, and I forget where I read it, and I apologize that I can't credit where this source was, but it was really helpful for me to read about that neurodivergent kids tend to process things linearly. It's one thing at a time. They have to do this one before they can do the next one. And in my head, I always envisioned like the checkout lane, right? And you got your little, scanner thing that has to, beep at everything, right? You can't shove 15 things across that thing at the same time. You just
run your cart through the line and
I was just saying, guess all what's in here. Look at all the stuff.
There's your $1 million idea or $1 billion idea.
Yes, that's why I could do it. Right. They have to do one thing at a time, and they have to process that first piece before they can do the next piece. And that takes time. And so we have to anticipate where are those pieces that they're probably going to get stuck.
Right.
What are the things, right? I know, I need gas. He's going to look at the gas gauge. I got to, allow him to look at that. I've got to tell him, a minute ahead of time. If we as parents, we have to anticipate what are all the places that could get them stuck. What's that one more item that they have to scan across before, they're ready for the next piece of information. And then, right, that really teaches us, what do we need to say? When do we need to say it? How far in advance? All the options. And that's on us as the parent, to anticipate for them. And you use the word front loading, right? It's how much can I give them ahead of time without being too much, to overload them on that piece, right? Just the basics.
Here's the irony of this kind of work, right? Because one, you don't want to over front load, or that can cause a meltdown, right? So it's got to be the right amount of front loading,
The
but
right
not saying
amount. Yeah.
because if you're starting off, we're going to the grocery store. Hey, by the way, I'm going to do this, and then we're going to come home. I'm going to do this, and this, and this. And it's too much information, right? Trying to scan those things through, right? Trying to scan too much stuff through at the same time. But I also like to look at that, and I think it's kind of the same idea of the scanning the grocery items idea, is that kind of details up processing. In my experience, at least, that idea of having to like examine all the details to then come to a conclusion about what it is they're thinking about, or what decisions they have to make, or what the day is going to look like. So it's different where a neurotypical will look at the big picture first and then drill down into details if necessary. So like if we walk into a room, we might be able to say, oh, that's that person, that person, that person, and everybody's sitting down and writing, so I should come in quiet and sit down and write, without going, you walk into a room and see, why is there 6 pieces of paper on the table? Why do people have pencils in their hands? Why, whatever, right? We kind of go from the bottom up to make a conclusion that, oh, we're taking a test today or something like that, right? So I guess one of those, I guess, call it a superpower, or a potential benefit of that, is being very detailed focused and being able to see things differently. That if a neurotypical person kind of comes in, we make a lot of assumptions, right? Our brain screens a lot of things, a lot of information. Like you're saying, all the stimulus that's around you right now, your brain can filter that. And maybe the pigeons are about to do something really scary, and you wouldn't pay attention. But that idea of, we come in and just make some assumptions about what's happening, and most of the time that's probably accurate, but it's cognitively efficient to do that, right? To tune out a lot of stuff, make assumptions, and then move forward. And then if there's something really unusual, then we'll focus in on that and kind of drill down into the detail. Whereas, neurodivergent kids or young adults or adults, or it's harder. It's like, got to process what's happening detail by detail first, and then build the picture, so to speak. And again, for problem solving and things like that, that can be really, really helpful if you have the time to solve a problem. That's probably a really efficient way to do it in terms of accuracy, but it's not as cognitively efficient in terms of just coming in and making some assumptions and moving on. So I do think it's part of that on the edge, cognitively and sensorially all the time. Like there's just so much information that has to be dealt with. And so I think that's probably some of the time why changing routines is so hard. Like they had anticipated, they already done all the work, they built the model in their head about what's going to happen, and then all of a sudden here comes a new piece of information that doesn't fit into their plan, or what they anticipated the day to go like, or the hour to go like, or the minute to go like, right?
And I think it's really, I love how I use that same example, kind of big picture to detail, and then detail to big picture. So think about, right, if you're processing things one at a time, and if you're going into a situation thinking it's going to turn out this way, here's the 5 things that I've already processed that, I know. If you've thrown a new thing in there, it's not just that one new thing that they have to process. They now have to kind of start over.
Rebuild and the whole
figure out
shit kind of
where
thing.
where that fits. And they kind of have to rescan all the groceries, if you will, to figure out, how does this work? What does this impact? And does this one new factor then change anything else? And if it does, then what are the potential outcomes for that? And kind of working through all those scenarios. Again, our brains, a neurotypical brain, can do that because we're also not so worried about what that new outcome, right? We feel we probably are equipped to handle whatever kind of new input just came at us. They don't feel that confident.
Yeah, right? I mean, again, like I said, it's a lot of work to get where they're at and to stay where they're at, right? So it's
and that's exhausting. Think about how exhausting, like how much just mental energy it takes to kind of get through that. And that alone is gonna, right, put you closer to that edge of pushing over. So yeah, I think we just have to be patient and compassionate, and right, no matter how frustrating it is on the parent side of things, guarantee you it's way harder on their end.
Yeah, and
Um,
again, that is one of those golden things that parents can hang on to and understand. Like, as hard as this is for me, they're having a way worse day than I am right now. You
way
know what I
harder
mean?
time.
Right.
Yeah. I'm just frustrated with right, my kid in that moment. But my kid is frustrated by whatever that situation is. And now my kid has to be frustrated with me because I'm frustrated, right? And I'm just making it
Right.
a
Not
thousand
only are
times
you
worse.
a variable that's intruding on them, but you are a caustic variable.
Yeah,
You're a
right. I'm
hostile
causing
variable at that
problems
point.
here.
You're
Yeah.
creating the problem, right? So,
And I think it's good. I mean, I think that's a way to think about it. Um, we used to talk about kind of that paramedic response of like, how can I make this worse?
right.
And then, okay, don't do that. I know when I say this particular thing, or if I don't give my kid that heads up at the gas station, I know I've just made the next 15 minutes worse for everybody. So I have to always be aware, hey, what do I need to do to help this go right or well or as smoothly as possible? And yeah, what do I
Yeah,
need
and
to
it's
avoid doing?
yeah, and again, in all fairness to parents, it's a lot of work to be always anticipating, right? And
Yeah,
sometimes you learn by trial and error. You run into a situation you haven't seen before. Oh wow, that was a landmine. There's a landmine over there. I didn't know it. We stepped on
yeah,
it. You know what I
didn't
mean?
see it.
So
Yeah,
yeah, like if you didn't know the gas station was going to be a problem, then you wouldn't think to do that. And then all of a sudden you realize, oh, this is a problem. And so maybe next time you try to adjust. But yes, that is a
yeah.
lot of
You
work, for
remember,
parents.
oh, gas station, big problem. Yeah. My son
Yep.
used to hate the dividers. We were using the grocery store. He used to hate the dividers in the grocery store, like between the two orders. And it took me a million years to figure that one out. I was like, why would that bother him? But it did. So I just had to like ask people, like, please don't put the divider there. Yeah, that one was a hard one too. That was a total landmine that I did not see.
Yeah, yeah. And so you never know. And again, it speaks to how it's so different for each kid too, even
Mhm.
within the autism spectrum or the neurodivergence. Right? Just because a vice works for one thing or something's triggering for one kid doesn't mean it's going to be triggering for
Yeah,
another kid. And again, it's so unique. So that idea of I think I like talking about it like you have to gain like a knowledge of what neurodiversity means or neurodivergence means so that you can then figure out how it applies to your particular son or daughter because again um, traditional parenting stuff is kind of out the window but
yeah,
even if you're approaching your son or daughter with a neurodivergent informed parenting mindset so to speak by understanding where some of these struggles are coming from or whatever that then you have to figure out okay well how does that now work you know what I mean for my kids like
yeah, and that's always the first thing I recommend parents do. Like, particularly if you're getting that autism diagnosis or ADHD diagnosis, whatever that diagnosis is, if you're getting it later on, right, the burden on parents is kind of twofold, like you're saying, right? You need to understand, generally speaking, hey, where'd that diagnosis come from? Why does my kid meet those criteria? Um, Again, big picture. And then the parents do have to drill in on the detail and know where are the spots that my kid is particularly vulnerable? Where are the places where he's going to be or she's going to be more reactive or less reactive? My son, oddly enough, we moved all the way across the country and he was like, whatever, this is our new house. Like that kind of stuff, right? The mindset normally like that would, totally panic a kid on the spectrum. My kid's odd
yeah,
in
one of
that
those
sense.
things
That's the one thing he doesn't like. He can just go to this is our new house now, and this is where we live. And he was like, okay, here's my
yeah
stuff, and he was fine.
cool
And I remember when he started he changed schools when he was really young. We moved to a different school district, and the autism consultant for the program like videotaped like getting off the bus and walking into the building and was super anticipatory of like this is going to be hard for him, and he was just like whatever, and he just strolled on in, and
yep
that was his new home. um, so right, that kind of generalized kids on the spectrum are going to have this reaction. not
You don't
mine.
know till you know, right?
Yeah. You need to become an expert on your kid's version of autism. I mean, there's that joke, right? If you've met one kid with autism, you've met one kid with autism. Everything is going to be different for them, and it only matters what your kid needs.
Right. But, I guess what I wanted to come back to about is the hyper focus piece. So we talk about trying to tune out all this stuff so that they can get by, the sensory overload and all the disruptive things going on around them, and then physical discomforts and all that. But so like when a kid can really, I mean, again, one of the things they can do sometimes is be hyper focused as well, right? So either even ADHD can go from being very inattentive to super attentive on something that has their attention to the totally disregarding of everything else that's happening around them. And so I think about when a kid gets caught up in like a video game or something like that. Again, when we talk about front loading and strategies for dealing with that, if they're hyper focused like that, they're in the zone, and that probably does feel good for their brains at some level to finally have something that has their attention at that level. It's almost like a deep form of meditation or something. I think.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So to remember that's again figuring out ways to front load or interrupt, or do it in a way that gives them warning that, hey, you got 15 minutes, you got 10 minutes, you got 5 minutes, then we're going to have dinner, or whatever you need to do, trying to create some systems to help them shift out of that intense focus or that hyper focus. Because again, it's like trying to go up and almost like wake a hibernating bear or something. If they're really into something, you're going to like surprise them for one, like, wait a minute, who's this? And why are you bothering me? Can't you see I'm doing something here?
Yeah. That attention shift. Yeah. And again, if you remember that linear processing, that one thing at a time, right? They're going to finish whatever is going on there before they even are attending to what you've said. And again, I don't think you can ever go wrong by slowing things down. It's just slowing that process. And right, if they need to be done at 6, then tell them.
Yeah, and give them again. Like I like the idea of multiple warnings. Yeah, my son was quite a gamer himself, and so it was tricky. But we found some systems that worked, for him, and reminders, and then 30-minute reminders, 10-minute reminders, or whatever.
Yeah, and whatever works for them, and can they set their own kind of system? My son has amazing. He has no idea about the passage of time, but he knows if I said we're doing this at quarter after whatever, when it's quarter after whatever, we better be doing things.
Not literalness, you said.
He's got that one, but you said we were doing this at this time, which is why I never tell him what time we're doing anything. But again, it's knowing kind of where your kids' superpowers are, where are their vulnerabilities, and right, if your kid's really good about noticing the clock and seeing that it's time, let them have that, right? You don't have to kind of baby them into you've got 5 minutes. But if your kid needs that, you've got 5 minutes, then do that. It's not enabling; it's those supportive measures. It's the things they need to be successful.
That's that again key one that's a dig in later about that enabling versus supporting, or enabling versus accommodating. And that's a big one. But I do remember what I was going to say though, is that idea of like you said, the burden on parents is to figure out what's going to be the problem areas for their son or daughter. And I think it's also important, like in the long run, for them to understand that about themselves, right? At some level to recognize, I don't do well in noisy, crowded situations, or I can be in here for about 10 minutes, but then I'm going to need to take a break, right? So then you help them learn strategies over time if they can. You take advantage of the things that like so leverage the things that they're good at. Like say if your son's really good at time telling or knowing when a certain time comes, then you can use that. But you can help him learn to use it to his advantage, right? Rather than it being something that's a problem.
Yes, than it being too distracting. I want to talk about you talked about that kind of front loading space for knowing, hey, we have to go do this loud, noisy thing. We used to make my son go to my daughter's band concerts. We don't want to go either, but we all had to go. But it was letting him know not only, hey, it's going to be this long, we're just going to watch your sister play, then we can leave, or he could leave. So it's not just right, recognizing when they might have that, right, when they've kind of reached capacity. But I really like to make sure that, my own kid and then the kids I work with have their, I always call it their exit strategy.
Yeah.
Like, where's the place that you can go? So then everyone knows, like, if my kid gets up and walks somewhere, that's because I've told him that that's where he needs to go, right? If you need to walk, then you're going to go walk over here. If you need a quiet space, you can go down the hall. There's a room there. If you can get all that kind of prearranged, I think that helps reduce the anxiety too, because the situation is anxiety inducing enough, but then they don't know where to go or how to fix it.
Yeah, if there's no
Makes
plan
it
B or
even
no
worse.
exit plan or
Yeah, if you've
something.
got
Yeah.
exit plan, it's exit strategy. Like, hey, if you're at the family gathering and it gets too much, right? It's okay if you go down and go to grandma's room for a while and just sit in there and do
Yeah.
whatever you need to do. I think.
Yeah, or bring like, hey, you need, this to be a noisy place. Maybe bring your noise canceling headphones, or make
Yep.
sure you're dressed comfortably. We're going to be outside or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, I like the idea of, particularly on vacations, I use this one a lot for some reason. Like, have a plan B so that the rest of the family
Yeah.
doesn't feel like they're being held hostage. Like, okay, well, if they're old enough, can your son or daughter just stay back at the hotel and hang out at
Yeah.
the resort or something like that? Or can you, if you want to go to a museum and they don't want to go, or they get bored, then they go out and sit on that bench right in the lobby or something like that, and we'll come get you. Or have strategies and have uh, accommodation tools, I guess, whether that's their
Yep.
cell phone or noise canceling headphones or music or a video game or movie to watch,
whatever
or whatever,
works.
right?
Yeah, whatever works. I had a young woman that I was working with that really did have pretty high levels of anxiety, and they were going on vacation to a place that was familiar, but they were staying in this time they were going to stay in an Airbnb instead of the hotel that they normally stayed in. And she was like, but I don't know that place. And so we just kind of set it out in advance, and parents knew that the strategy was, the minute you get there, go find your space. Go find the space that you can go to, find out how far you can. She was older and was able to, go outside if she wanted, right? But here's the parameters. If you're going to take a walk, go walk over here. Like, they had it all figured out before they did anything. So when that situation arose, then she already had the game plan, and she knew, oh, okay, I'm just going to go take my walk now. And everyone knew where she was.
That's a great example of that front loading idea, right? To try to make a plan in advance when possible. And
because trying to figure it out right in that moment, and right, we know when you're in that fight or flight, and people are like, well, try this, try that, and right, they're just throwing stuff at you. And when you can't think clear, like, everything's going to sound stupid, and and your kid will probably tell you that that's really stupid. I don't want to do that. But if you can make those thoughts and strategies way ahead of time when emotions are not dysregulated, so much better for everyone.
Yep, for sure. All right. Well, we covered some ground, Shari.
We're good.
But yeah, so I guess for our listeners out there, if you have any questions or concerns, or even things that you would like Shari and I'm sure we could do this again in the future at some point. So let us know. And I will put some information in the show notes about how to get a hold of us or whatever. But certainly, yeah, let us know if you have any questions or concerns or comments about anything we said. Definitely let us know what we can do to answer any of your specific questions. But thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time to do this, and I hope this is helpful for parents out there who are, really, it's a significant challenge for sure. And but at the same time, I mean, I don't like it to be all like doom and gloom. You know what I mean? There's some wonderful things too. Particularly, I think if you see that, their brains are just different. It doesn't mean it's wrong or bad. It's not necessarily built well for how we've set up society, but maybe we're not doing it that great either. And so, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there may be some real things that we could learn from and make adjustments to for ourselves. But
absolutely.
But anyway, so thanks again, Shari. Appreciate it. And we'll be in touch soon. And we'll go from there. All right. Take care.
Thanks. You too.
Thank you so much for listening today. If you haven't yet, I'd like to invite you to watch my free intensive training course, From Chaos to Confidence, a new approach for parenting neurodivergent teens and young adults. It's a solid overview of 3 key aspects of parenting a neurodivergent teen or young adult to help you create a calm environment with less conflict, distress, and resistance where everyone can thrive. After you've finished watching, there is a link to schedule an intake or screening meeting with me, Dr. Ed Callahan, to determine which level of services would be the best fit for your specific circumstances. And don't forget to join my low-cost parent support community, where you'll find great value through many helpful and practical courses, resources, and find a group of supportive parents who can relate and support you through your questions and challenges. Visit www.neurodiversity-u.com or click the link in the show notes to gain access to my free training and my meeting scheduler, and also where you can sign up for the parent support community. Thanks again for joining me. See you in the next episode.